Carlita, thank you again, and I will talk to you soon. I urge all your listeners to keep tuning in to Sailing Beyond Knowledge Radio.
Hi, I'm your host Carlita, and this is Sailing Beyond Knowledge Radio podcast. And today's theme is going to be about big tech surveillance. And I did have a guest that was going to come on to the show today that I'd prepared for, but last minute cancellation. First time that that's happened ever for any guests on Sailing Beyond Knowledge Radio. I was also going to put the interview on my Anti-Vaccine Radio podcast, which is trying to bridge the gap between conventional technology and how we can bridge that gap to alternative solutions. So anyway, I'm going to start with a note that I understand the recent outcome with the Julian Assange case is that it's been decided that he is going to be extradited to the United States. And obviously his team are going to appeal against that. And I think it's relevant to what I'm going to share with you today, and you'll see why. Okay, so the challenges to humanity posed by the digital future with 5G, 6G, and the Internet of Everything, the first detailed examination of this kind of power called surveillance capitalism was noted in a book by Shoshana Zuboff in 2019. And this kind of surveillance, it provides these corporations with data from us to predict and manipulate human behavior, but they put it all under the means of collecting that data for advertising and agencies and so on. And this technology of corporate communism, which is what it is, has really been condensed and intensified over the last 2 years, especially with the surveillance on our health now. And, you know, these pandemia themes are trying to normalize our acceptance, or goading us into accepting this level of tracking and tracing for the good of our health and for the good of humanity, rather than our own human rights and privacy. So, you know, you no longer have a personal choice because it's for the good of society and the community. And that really sounds to me much like communism. So, so Shoshana Zuboff wrote about surveillance capitalism and coined the phrase from her book in 2019. And before that, they tried to warn us, people like Edward Snowdon, Julian Assange, that our data is going to be harvested and surveillance is going to become a much bigger thing playing in our lives. And a great deal of money is being made from this by big tech government-supported monopolies. And today, Julian Assange is the one being accused of spying, when it's actually the government that is spying on us and committing corruption and lies in the deep state. So surveillance capitalism means vast wealth and power is accumulated by the elites and these corporations for new behavioral future markets, actually human futures data is now a much more valuable commodity than gold, where predictions about our behavior are bought and sold, and the production of goods and services is subordinated to a new means of behavioral modification. So the threat has shifted from totalitarian Big Brother state to this kind of digital technocracy, and they use this information to target individuals over social media in a manner through advertising and videos and things like that you'll see. It's kind of like a controlled hive of total connection that manipulates with promises of uncertainty for total certainty for maximum profit, at the expense of our freedom, privacy, and democracy, which seems to has been inverted over the last 2 years. Anyway, the countries that we would assume were once democratic have now been inverted to full-blown fascism as we see it, like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK. We live in an illusion of democracy, and we are being fed a lot of events that are pushing us to accept this level of surveillance in society. And it's just not on, really. So before and during the pandemic, the internet seemed to be shrinking. Less search results were showing up. And they firstly blame this on people having different algorithms, but actually it's a watering down and censorship of the information that's being brought up on search engines now. So we have that, as well as a normalization of health passports, tracking and tracing, and internet surveillance. So, this very much ties into what we've been experiencing the last few years. And I want to go into talking about some of these big tech names and how their role fits into PRISM, which is an NSA and FBI surveillance program. I wrote about this in an article last year, which I will put links to in the podcast description. So it's even more alarming when you learn that Amazon recruited Keith Alexander, former National Security Agency chief and head of US Cyber Command, to its board of directors in September 2020. And Alexander runs the nation's cyber war efforts. Amazon has had contracts and collaborations with the NSA for over the last 20 years, along with Twitter, Google, Instagram, Microsoft, Skype, YouTube, Facebook, and other social media companies, servers who are part of the PRISM network. An NSA spy surveillance program launched on US citizens since the 9/11 attacks, which are used to leverage, with domestic terrorism being the foundation of these illegal surveillance projects on humanity. It has been repeatedly put in question by journalists that perhaps this is why these companies enjoy apparent immunity to tax, especially Amazon in the US and foreign countries in which they operate their services. This is how big tech giants have the power to dislodge even the last president of the United States from Twitter and Facebook. I'm talking about Trump. And these illegal spying programs have been used with hammer and scorecard tools, which are highly sophisticated satellite tools that can hijack elections as well, in collaboration with big tech corporations, to target and collect data from Americans and foreigners, which includes the following: personal and business documents, financial records, phone records, medical records, internet searches, emails, SMS and MMS messages, your images, your login credentials, your IRS records, your social security information, your IP address, with geolocation information, corporate records, corporate IPs, attorney-client communications, attorney-client documents, voter information, voter records, which can also be flipped, government communications, classified documents, all collected in these illegal programs, surveillance programs, without a single court order allowing them to collect this information. So remember Alexa from Amazon. Alexa is used by Amazon as a backdoor device for spying on you in your private home. There was an article that came out in 2019 by Forbes tech journalist TJ McHugh. You can look it up. We'll put links in the podcast description. The article was warning people on the dangers of Alexa and how to protect their privacy. And in his article, he wrote, Amazon responded to a letter sent by Senator Christopher Coons in late May, confirming that it maintains Alexa recordings indefinitely unless a user manually comes in and deletes them. So some of the recordings are specific to a time-based entry, such as an alarm setting or a calendar item on repeat each week. Clearly, you and the company are willing to keep these in place, but the rest, you have to delete them or they are kept for forever by Amazon. In the wake of a big news media star concern exposing the PRISM surveillance program in 2013, it was learned by the public that PRISM used its influence to coerce big tech companies to work with the NSA and FBI. Public news media realized that Google and Facebook were being used as fronts by these government surveillance agencies to infiltrate Silicon Valley, to exploit the wealth of intelligence data that we provide unwittingly. For example, on Facebook, what we're actually doing is we're being unwitting volunteers and on a voluntary database, giving our personal details. Everything from messages to private WhatsApp messages are also stored on these servers. You only need to look back to the court case that Zuckerberg was in before admitting all of this. So this is how these big tech companies started gathering data that we provide unwittingly, and gathering their influential power by working with the government agencies that are mining data via their software applications directly from our phones, emails, computers to spy on us. This was not the first time the previously secret NSA FBI program called PRISM was exposed. Since then, it has been largely discussed, but more or less just assimilated into our technocracy. And that's dangerous. And look where we are today, because it hasn't been given the public space for us to set our boundaries with legalese and going into campaigns and public campaign against this kind of level of surveillance. We haven't had a say in it, and instead we've had a lot of events and world events that have pushed us into accepting this technocracy, which is rather concerning. And now we see the devastatingly powerful consequences of this. So there is one person that I was going to have on today's show, who has done a lot of great work in the past exposing the corruption in British establishment. And because of this, he's had to change his name and go through a lot of persecution. But recently, he's been doing some amazing stuff, and he created MegaSearch, which is an incredible search engine, which has access to the biggest search engine data. And I was going to speak with him today. He's someone I regard as carrying the torch for fighting back to preserve and protect our internet freedom, free speech, and censorship, and a pioneer in protecting all of these issues against the growing technocracy and surveillance capitalism. So anyway, he cancelled. I don't really know why, but I hope that he comes onto our show another time. So just going into MegaSearch project, you can find out about MegaSearch by going to megasearch.org. Between Mega, you've got mega-search.org. And it's a fantastic internet browser that's now available to everybody, which provides real privacy for you, and it's not censoring any of the searches that you do or filtering that, or collecting or selling your personal data to third-party agencies like all the rest of them. It's been exposed recently that other search engines like DuckDuckGo have been actually funneling back your data to Google. So, Zed has been doing some amazing stuff for this. And in order to do this, he had to crowdfund to get basic money together. He has the service for megasearch.org in a country where they're protected. So if anything happens, or if... Yeah, so sorry about that. The internet went down, which is unusual. Obviously, this information isn't something that many will like. So as I was saying, Zed has servers to megasearch.org in Iceland, which is one of the few countries that still protects our privacy and free speech and human rights. So it's a fantastic project that he's been working very hard on. And he really is working very hard because he hardly has any time for interviews and things like this. So I really do suggest that you go to www.mega-search.org, and you can also list your business and services free there, or you can support the project by paying for your own advertisements there as well. So it's a fantastic site. It's really interesting playing around with MegaSearch. And I did some searching on there yesterday, even for myself, MegaSearched myself, which was interesting because I found a lot of things I've never found before. So I really recommend it. It's an amazing project, and I know Zed is collaborating with one of the very first founders of the internet, who remains to be unnamed for protection. And yeah, so I really hope that he will come onto our show later on when he has time. I'm not sure why he cancelled today, so apologies for that, but we'll hopefully have him on in the future. I know that he's got an amazing ambition to circumnavigate the world with his boat, to put the word out about MegaSearch and speak to people all over the world about this issue of privacy, big tech, and so on. So, if you think about sometimes where you've noticed after a telephone call or a face-to-face conversation or a text conversation you had talking about this particular theme, And then it starts cropping up on social media adverts or in your search engine advertisements at you. And it makes you wonder if they've been listening well, after everything I've spoken to you about and shared with you today. Absolutely, they are. And if you read the small print in recently updated Instagram and FB social media sites, you'll see that by participating in their app, you're giving them permission to record your life, even offline, when you're not signed in. So they are legally in this framework, accessing your privacy and trying to hack your mind with your human futures data, which, as I said, has become the most valuable commodity, more so than gold. So to cash in and sell the data to these human future agencies is big, big, big money. And I've personally had social media profiles taken down on Facebook and on other sites, like LinkedIn as well, where I've published science papers, and recently YouTube took down a video of me reading out a poem under the pretext of medical misinformation. My rebuttal was that this is a poem, it's art, this is not news, it's not a news channel, and I'm not soliciting any medical advice. So how can it be taken down under medical misinformation? But they didn't take any notice of my rebuttal, and gave me a second mark of whatever a second strike against my account. Recently, a friend of mine, Jason Verbelli, had his entire YouTube account removed because, again, under the guise of medical misinformation, and all he shares is scientific alternatives to producing electricity and the science of the ether. So, they will use medical misinformation as an excuse to take down anything that they deem a threat to their agendas. And that's that, basically. And it seems that the laws have changed in recent years in preparation for this. So you can't even contest some of these forms of gross censorship. So despite that, the outcome of this is that we have alternative social media born, like MeWe, Gab, Parler, Mind, and Hive, and open source social media is evolving, ever evolving, and moving towards trying to protect our free speech and our privacy, and to avoid this aspect of data harvesting, which has become such a big game. So thanks to people like Zed Phoenix, you've still got an incredible search engine that is evolving and growing, and will continue to protect your freedom and your privacy. And we're at a crossroads now for freedom of speech and freedom of choice, where corporations are doing their best to destroy that, and we need to fight back and show them that we still have the power to keep it. And Zed Phoenix has proven that. He's one person, and he's working with a team that he put together to provide this amazing tool. So this is what we were going to discuss today, Megasearch and how it evolved, and Zed's background story, which is really fascinating, as he's someone who's dedicated himself to exposing the truth, and really has done that in some very brave and courageous ways. So that's all I can share with you today on this topic. It's a lot of mind-blowing stuff, really, that isn't really in the mainstream or talked about much in alternative media. Although, you know, I advocate solutions and solutionaries, eco-solutionaries has been my main theme. And we really want to empower people with solutions and be a part of that rather than a part of the crisis. So I hope this information and what I'm going to post in the description next to the podcast will be beneficial to you. And I will leave you with some wonderful music. And I look forward to hopping on again and sharing more in the future. We have some more guests lined up for Sailing Beyond Knowledge and my other project, podcast project, and I will keep you updated. Thank you.
Sailing Beyond Knowledge.